What's up, Playground? It's me, Shanila, and welcome back to our Shadow Work series where we've been investigating the ins and outs of shadows for 22 episodes. Can you believe we've been talking about shadow work for 22 episodes? I feel like we could still sit here and talk another 22, but I digress. We've somehow made it to episode 20, which is all about your identity and your self-concept. Now, if you're just clicking onto this episode without having listened to any part of this series, I highly recommend that you click around and find a couple of episodes that's part of the Shadow Work series because it's been incredible. I've been loving hearing from you on Instagram and DMs and our IG channel, all the different places where we connect. And I've been loving to know how different things are changing the way that you see, the way that you're healing. So if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And if you do follow along YouTube, I created a Shadow Work playlist. So all the episodes that are in this series are also living in there somewhere. Okay, so let's get into it. Now, episode 20 is all about identity development and identity deconstruction and all these fancy words. And if you're a long-term listener of the Playground podcast, we talk about identity and changing up your self-concept when you're doing your healing work. Now, self-concept is a concept in psychology that basically says that you have this idea of yourself. You've built this version of yourself in your head, in your mind, and your energy that is just the way you are. And some of our self-concepts are useful to us and some of them are not. They're very harmful. They're very irritating. They actually are limiting in the way that you can see yourself, in the way that you pursue things, the way that you think about yourself. And it can really just be a pain in the ass depending on how you navigate your self-concept. So all in all, self-concept is something that all of us have. It's a concept that we've made of ourselves. So think about what you think about yourself. Like what are some self-concepts that you have that build you in the vision that you have, okay? So you might think of yourself as a list of really great things. You might have a list of really not great things. You might have a combination of great and not great things and anywhere on that spectrum. And so basically you're conceptualizing who it is that you are as a person. So a lot of our self-concepts are sometimes, clinically assigned to us. We think that there's a particular personality characteristic or a personality trait that we are either born with or that's just how we are. And there's other things that we conceptualize to be malleable, meaning that there's things about you that you can change over time. And there's certain things that are not changeable and there's certain things that are changeable that you may believe are not changeable because that's just how you think about it. So for example, overthinking. I'm going to use overthinking as a big one because I know that many people who listen to my podcast and people who are in the stratosphere of my work are overthinkers, and sometimes that plays in your benefit because that means that you're an analytical person. That means that you are a trouble solver, a problem solver. You're a troubleshooter. You can think about a problem from many different angles, but it can also be a really, harmful thing in your life where it prevents you from being able to do the things that you want to do. Because it's like you're analyzing and you're thinking and you're now causing yourself to be in fear because you thought too much about a thing. And there's kind of this looping situation that happens when you're an overthinker. So there's pros and cons with that. Now, for example, if you are an overthinker, you might have this belief that you're not really able to do things in life, meaning that you can't actually pursue a passion or a project or, some kind of hobby because you're just paralyzed in thinking about what is the outcome, what is the process, what's going to happen if I don't get it the first time I try it, what's going to happen. And now there's all this perfectionism narrative that comes in. Now you're back into this loop. Now, if you believe that you are an overthinker, you are more so prone to not being able to see yourself out of that thought loop because you have a belief that that's just who you are. Like you're just an anxious person. You are somebody who's unable to solve the problem. You're somebody who's unable to navigate your nervous system anytime there's a discomfort or an uncomfortable or new situation. If you believe that about yourself, then you will actually create that to be true or more true in your life than if you had a different belief. Okay. So if you believe that, yes, I actually am recognizing that I do go into this overthinking loop, but even if I don't know the exact way to heal out of that in this exact moment, I believe that this is just not who I am wired to be. I can unwire this. I can reprogram this. I can reconfigure the way that I'm navigating with all these, thoughts that are overwhelming and all of these different things that are taking over my mind. And you see how both of these things are true and not true, but your belief systems around it definitely definitely impact the way that you're going to navigate that. So if you automatically believe I cannot, then like, okay, then that's going to be your reality. The way that you're going to move towards helping yourself through overthinking is going to match your reality. You're going to see, it's so hard. It's going to see, I told you I couldn't do it. See, like I tried it one time and then it didn't work. It's like, okay, well now we're, listen to our victim mentality episodes there, the victim archetype. Now, there's another way to approach that, which is to say, like I just mentioned, it's like maybe you don't have the tools, and maybe you do have the tools, but you haven't really fully learned how to implement that. Or it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like you're trying, but it's not really sticking. There's all of these different variations of that. But that person, if you're in that energy of, I believe that thing can happen for me if I continue to practice it, if I start to build it into my muscle memory, I'm going to be able to make the changes that I want to be. Okay. And in psychology, there is another word for that, which is fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And I'm also going to add in the energy language here, is that on your nervous system, there is a very specific energetic transference that's happening when you're in a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is to say, I'm actually not dealing with my body's discomfort, my nervous system's discomfort anytime I'm going to make changes. So I'm going to just believe that that's just who I am. This is like my natural state. I'm an overthinker. I'm an anxious person. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a people pleaser. That's just who I am. And your nervous system is basically scared to break out of that concept that it's built. It's safer to be in this like kind of victim-y area and to say like, see, that's just how I was and that's just how it is. And you're not really willing to look at the wounds. You're not really willing to look at the shadows. And part of why we're doing a 22 episode, instead of just like, trying to get all of this shit done in one episode, is to say that there's all of these wounds that are so deeply ingrained at the underlying of your belief systems. It's beneath your belief systems. It's in your subconscious of your belief systems. Now, in the growth mindset energy, the energy is more expansive, is to say, oh shit, this is very discomforting. It is very uncomfortable to change this idea that I have about myself. And again, I don't really know if I can implement it. I have some fears going on. You have the same things that are happening when you're on the other side of this, but you just have a different attitude about it. Your body has a different attitude. Your nervous system has a different attitude. So there's more of an expansive energy. Your nervous system has the capacity to expand through the discomfort rather than just believing that that is the truth for you. Okay. Now, of course, there might be certain like objective truths, but behaviorally, there are some subjectivity to that, meaning that there are things that you are able to change and shift, but you have to want to, and part of the shadow work and the work of inner healing, self-development, self-mastery, it's a self-decision. You got to make a self-choice, and you have to give yourself the permission to exist in the discomfort of changing up your self-concept. Okay. So as your self-concept changes and shifts, there's also this part of you that fears, when your identity shifts, there's like, ooh, well, who am I if I don't get to attach myself to the storyline anymore? And who am I when I don't get to attach myself to this, woe is me? And who am I when I have, to make a decision that is scary and is big, and it's going to make me have to do different things, think different things, be in a different way than I'm used to. Okay. And for better or for worse, because sometimes we're making changes that are not necessary. And it's like, you're doing too much. Like, you're doing too much on this other end. But if you are on that, path to liberation, path to feeling self-love and self-confidence, and you want to be connected to your higher self, there's a part of you that is willing to do that work, right? The willing is a big piece of understanding why some shadow work works and why shadow work doesn't work. There's that energy of willingness that has to be present. So when you are in this process of uncovering your self-concept, a lot of us are not actually really aware of what concepts of ourselves we currently hold, because most of these concepts are subconscious. They are these internal beliefs that we don't actually really know that we're functioning out of. So again, like if your entire life you grew up saying, I'm a perfectionist, I'm a people pleaser, I'm an empath, I absorb people's energies, I absorb people's people's energy. You're repeating something about you, but you're not really willing to see it from a different perspective. That's the self-concept that we're talking about. And let me like take a deep breath and, backtrack, which is to say some self-concept really helps. Sometimes if you're saying like, I'm willing, I'm able, I'm capable, I can figure it out, that's also really healthy self-concept to have. That gives you motivation, it gives you energy, it gives you hope, it gives you, confidence, it gives you all of these different things that work in your favor. So like self-concept, I'm not, in any way, shape, or form arguing that it's a negative thing, but I am pointing out that it can have negative connotations based on how we're interacting with it. So imagine your entire life, you had this one thought or one belief or a system of beliefs that were, I can't, I'm just like this, I'm just like this. It's kind of this program that is repeating in your head. It's a narrative, it's a loop, and perhaps you built those things by yourself because self-concept, but your self-concept is also influenced by other people, influenced by parents, people who raised you, teachers, friends, society, all the wounds that you may be carrying. They're not just like, things just landed upon your lap. You build your belief system over time. And, your self-concept breaks many times during your life. That's one of the things that you have to understand. And we sometimes latch onto it. It's like, wow, I spent all of these years like building this identity, building this thing. And it's like, I don't resonate with this anymore, or I've outgrown this. I don't really fit, like most of these parts don't fit anymore. Some of these parts, there's all of this kind of like reconfiguration of your self-concept. So that's one of the lessons of this particular episode, is that it is a malleable thing. It will shift and change over time. Because right now, so for example, say you're in your late 20s or early 30s, you have a self-concept about yourself now. But imagine if you had the same self-concept about yourself when you're in your 50s or when you're in your 70s. Like, it's not going to be as helpful to have the self-concept of a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old when you're 70s. You're going to have to rebuild your self-concept in a way that matches the current state of your life, the current chapter, the current energy, the current occurrences and experiences of your life. It's going to inform the self-concept that you have then. So instead of worrying about like what your concept is going to be later, worry about your concept right now. Really, really look into the depths of the things that you think and why you think that. Why are you running this pattern, this programming of, I'm not good enough, or I'm not this, or I cannot do this, or everybody can but me, or, this fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, the trust issues, the guilt, the communication. Like, you got to evolve out of that, all of those things can have worked for you in your younger years, in your formative years. Those are then, but you're not there right now. Like, you're literally listening to a podcast. You're not a child. You understand? You have to really meet yourself in this present moment to say, what is this concept that is wanting to grow and evolve? And what is the part of this concept that I really need to destruct, to destroy? And I don't really remember the episode number on the Playground podcast, but there was a really good episode about destroying your self-concept. And it's one of the most healing things that you're going to do in your healing journey, and the permission that you give yourself to destroy that is really liberating. And I'll give you some personal examples, which is, I've been talking to you on this podcast for 4 years, and maybe we've connected in person in workshops and things like that. Maybe you're one of my students in masterminds, mentorships. I train breathwork facilitators and sound healers. However it is that we connected, part of what I do is I talk about my relationship with being in research science and coming into the world of the healing arts. I talk about breaking my self-concept of, what it means to be a researcher, and what format of a researcher am I if I'm not in this like traditional research format? What does it mean for me to be a healer? What is the concept of me as a healer? What does it mean for me to be a musician and an artist and a creative and an author? Like, there's all of these different like identities that are always at play, that either you're going to feel really bottled in, like, hey, how can I talk about this topic if I'm like, talking about these other things? Or how can I write about this topic if I'm somebody who does all these other things? And well, how can I like feel so boxed in when there's so many different parts of me that want to be expressed and come through at different times? That is the work of self-concept. That is the shadow work of being able to exist in many different categories and domains and multi-dimensional curiosities that allow you to give yourself permission. And for me, it's permission giving to say, hey, can I do this? And like, what narratives or programming am I running that says that I cannot, or that says that this is, not for me, that says there's whatever it says. And you'll notice in my line of work and the things that I've done and produced, at least, I've been online for 4 years, but I've done my work for about 10 at this point. And when you look at my body of work, you'll notice that there's a really smooth flow of moving through different categories of work, moving through different categories of topics. But at the end of the day, my self-concept of myself doesn't change because I am so in tune with my own essence. My essence is something that I'm learning about and evolving into day by day. And my expression of my essence is going to change. My expression of my essence is going to, navigate grief and sadness and happiness and success and achievements and all of these different things. And my essence will evolve. And if I'm not tapped into my essence, and I'm interchangeably now using essence and self-concept, is that it is the part of my soul that is in my purpose. And my purpose shifts and changes as I experience life. And if I'm thinking that who I was at my early 20s, in my late 20s, in my early 30s, in my late 30s, like however it is that I think of myself at those times and stages of my life, if I'm so stuck on being that version of me in my early 20s, then I cannot exist in this part of my 30s right now, and if I'm so caught up in this part of my 30s, then as I grow into my 40s in the next few years, like I'm not going to be able to have room to grow. Then I'm going to talk to you about what I want to talk to you about then, like when I'm there, I'll have, another 22-part series about X, Y, and Z topic that is just like prominent to me at that time in my life. But if I'm trying to repeat the same thing over and over again, that is not part of my essence. As I evolve more into my essence, it's going to be a trap. It's going to feel limiting. It's going to feel like I've boxed myself in, or I don't really have, space to grow. So as you're navigating your self-concept and your identity and whatever, other sexy way that you want to think about it, I personally love to think about my self-concept as my essence. And there's an energy imprint to your self-concept. There's an energy imprint to your essence. So the more you become, the easier it becomes to be you, and part of the resistance that we have to becoming us is the fear that our body feels of being seen, the fear of perception, the fear of judgment, the fear of all the different things that we've talked about in this series already. And that's why you do your shadow work. That's why you come to do the shadow work from a deep core level. That's not really just about, here I am doing like one tapping exercise that gives me temporary relief. I'm really looking at what it means for me to break something, to destroy something, to burn something, and understand how I'm the creator in being able to rebuild that in my vision. You understand? That's inner power. That's strength. That's courage. That's bravery. And at no point, no part of this am I suggesting, oh, it's so easy. Like, it's so easy. Da, da, da. I don't think it needs to be hard, but I do think there is effort involved in it. And you can do hard things. You can do things that require effort if it's worth it. Your body will allow you to do it when you understand that it's worth it. Okay, so friends, we have one more episode left in this series. If you have not listened to the series, I highly recommend doing so. Subscribe to the podcast and let me know if you're joining me for shadow work in 2025. We are in a 6-week group container starting January 9th, and we are doing the deep stuff. We're looking at the wounds. We're looking at the programming. We're looking at the deep parts of us that feels like it is stuck in one place. So if you're ready to heal, you want to get through that perfectionism, you want to heal through that people pleasing, the overthinking, the self-doubt, the imposter syndroming, come through. I'll leave you a direct link in the show notes, but you can also head to www.alwaysplay.org/shadow-work. alwaysplay.org/shadow-work, and you'll get all the details about how you can get enrolled. All right. Well, friends, just remember the world is your playground. And until next time, I will catch you soon.